Well, Bob said I would be here to talk about trends in the industry. I'd actually like to go back many, many years. It was 25 years ago this month that I arrived at Albuquerque Airport with my LIN, my 200 favorite LPs, my 200 CDs, and that I was taking over as editor of Stereophile from VJ Gordon Holt. It was quite a, as you can imagine, quite a nerve-wracking experience. I'd been editor of Hi-Fi News magazine for 4 years before that time. And I guess it's difficult to remember that 30 years ago, how different the world of audio was. That you had the establishment in England. You had the KEFs and the Quads and the SMEs, and the general feeling that everything had been solved. All the problems had gone away, that hi-fi could not be any better than it was as in 1976. In America, you had Macintosh and Marantz had both been around for a very long time. But again, the establishment, the stereo reviews of this world had basically taken the position that it couldn't get much better than that. If you got, say, a Thorens turntable with an SME arm and a Shure V15 2 or 3 cartridge, and in England it would be a quad amp, in America it would be, say, a Macintosh. And there was nothing more to be got out of audio than that. Now, as good as those products were, when I joined Hi-Fi News in 1976, I thought, well, that's not right, because if you listen to a system as good as it sounded, it didn't sound anything like real music, like real life. And I started to become aware through Stereophile, which I read in England, through The Absolute Sound, a big early reader of Harry Pearson, and even through a magazine called The Audio Critic, edited by a man called Peter Axel, who later was to go crazy. Nevertheless, they were saying, well, wait a minute, there is good stuff out there. There is new ideas. There are new products. And when I became editor of Hi-Fi News, I'd already heard what to me at that time was the best system I'd heard in my life. It was at CES in 1980 or 81. It was Infinity RS1Bs driven by Audio Research, tube electronics. I think the front end was an Oracle turntable, Koetsu cartridge. It sounded closer to music than anything I had heard from the establishment brands that were around at that time. So I thought, well, I've become the editor of Hi-Fi News. I'm going to pay attention to this movement. We didn't call it high-end audio back then, but that's what it was. And when I came to edit Stereophile, I thought it's the same thing. Here is an industry that is growing because they are offering a more direct path to the music. That they weren't hung up on technologies, they weren't hung up on status quos. There were a million ideas being explored, and many of them brought you closer to music. I remember when I first heard an Audio Research SP10 preamp, I was talking to Brooks about it earlier. That was, my goodness, that was such a great product in its day, and it's still a great product if it wasn't for the fact that it burns through tubes while you look at it. Krell KSA 50, I reviewed it in the August 1983 issue of Hi-Fi News. I still have that power amp. I drag it out occasionally. It's still a game-changing amplifier. So I just wanted to say that, this industry has been growing organically for 30 years. Combination of artisanship, craftsmanship, engineering quality, entrepreneurship, in that almost every high-end audio company is founded and run by one man with a vision, and couple that with a love of music, and you end up with the kind of products you can listen to at Brooks's store this afternoon. Of late, it's been changing a lot. 2 years ago, I gave a speech at the LA and Orange County Audiophile Society's gala about what I saw as the balkanization of high-end audio, that there were more and more different kinds of products, and people forming many small tribes, each devoted to one way of doing it. That would be their way was the only true way. And how I saw the industry was growing in that direction, and how we as a magazine were trying to cope with that when there was no monolithic industry anymore. At the show in January, I gave a speech which was triggered by the enormous amount of stupid expensive products there were at this year's CES. You see a new brand from Austria. How much are these speakers? Over $180,000. What? $180,000 in this economic climate? And there were at least 10 loudspeakers costing that much. Amplifiers costing $150,000. And I'm starting to feel a little nervous about, well, who's buying these products? Who are they aimed at? How do I cover them in the magazine? I mean, Alina Lamb, very nice person, approached me a couple of weeks back and said, John, I want you to review our new 4-chassis preamp. How much is it, Alina? It's $150,000. I thought, I can't review that. I cannot relate to a product which costs that much. So I gave a speech at the show in Las Vegas, and I developed it a little bit further into, as we see it in our April issue, about this upward price spiral could become a death spiral for the high-end audio industry, because if all you're offered is $150,000 amplifiers or nothing, then most of us, of necessity, will have to choose nothing. And fortunately, there are signs that mass market products are getting better, particularly in loudspeakers. The loudspeaker you can buy for $400 now is better sound-wise, engineering-wise, and measurement-wise than a $4,000 speaker was 20 years ago. I was thinking about this, that the danger then that faces the lower end of the market is what has happened in the home theater market and what has happened in the recorded music market, which is when something becomes a commodity, it has no more value anymore, and there's no differentiation between any of it. I attended a seminar many years back by the management guru Tom Peters. He was talking about the effect of the mass market on specialty industries. So obviously I'd gone to that because I thought, well, you know, this is something I'm interested in from the point of view of high-end audio. And he said, the thing you have to remember is commoditization is the enemy of quality. That when products are commoditized, the only differentiator then becomes price, quality becomes irrelevant. And this has happened in the home theater market. You know, when you can buy a flat screen TV for a few $100s, and you know, we publish a magazine called Home Theater, which used to be very successful, examining the quality of flat panel TVs, amongst other things. But there's no more quality differentiation worth writing about, I think. So, as high-end audio companies remain true to the idea of reproducing the music, of offering as clear a window as possible into your music, then we can resist that trend to commoditization. It's not easy. I was talking to John Curl, the great designer, a few weeks back, and he was telling me about how, you know, every design he does, he pours his heart into. And he was telling me about the original Parasound HCA 3500 that he designed, must have been 12 years ago, how the prototype sounded really good. When it started selling, and this is an amplifier that was made in Taiwan, didn't get any good reviews. Dealers were not happy about it. And so he thought, well, that's odd, because I think this is really good. I put my heart and soul into this design. So he got one of the production models in and did some A/B tests, and he thought, well, this amplifier that's being sold as my design doesn't sound anything like my design. And what had happened was that the Taiwanese engineers had looked at John's circuit and looked at his bill of materials, and where he had, say, specified specific resistors, a Vichy resistor at one point, a Blackgate, Nichicon Blackgate capacitor at another point, the Taiwanese production engineers would say, well, we don't even need to have anything like that expensive part in. We'll put just a general purpose part in. And they had done that to his entire circuit. So even though the circuit was the same, the implementation was very much compromised. And again, it's because of this, attitude and the point of view of some of the people in the industry that, what's it matter, it's all the same anyway. And the interesting corollary is that then when John redid the circuit as a monoblock with the highest quality parts and with his friend Bob Crump doing the layout, this became the Parasound Halo JC1, which has been a very widely popular, well-received, well-reviewed and popular amplifier. It's still the same circuit as the HCA 3500, he told me. And yeah, that same commoditization you see happening in the recorded music industry, where a CD now has no intrinsic value at all. You give them away, you can't give them away. Sales of CDs have gone down by half in the last 5 years. The LP is actually still valid. It's more of an object of desire. It still has intrinsic value, but the CD, not at all. So, don't know if that's quite the trends you were hoping for, Bob. I mean, we live in very interesting times. I mean, I am, in a sense, a dinosaur. I'm the editor of a magazine printed on paper in the world of the internet. And I was at meetings, our head office is in El Segundo, so I spent yesterday in meetings talking about what's the next 5 years for Stereophile going to be, what's the next 10 years. And we all were still thinking, well, it's still going to be a magazine printed on paper, obviously, although electronic editions and the web are very important to us. Nevertheless, paper still has a role for a specialty magazine where you cannot get Art Dudley anywhere except in Stereophile, and that's why there still will be a Stereophile, and for Michael Frammer, and for Sam Terlick, and for my new writer, Stephen Mejias. You have to buy the paper magazine to get those writers. The other thing that's happening is the explosion of audio shows. Now, I don't know if Bob told you, but there's going to be one in Newport Beach in 2 weeks' time. You've been keeping it quite quiet, I believe, Bob. But, I mean, I think in the last 6 weeks I've been to shows in Montreal, in Atlanta. There's one this weekend in Munich, which I'm not at. I sent Stephen Mejias in my place, because I wanted to be here with Bob. Well, he didn't actually give me a choice. And then last weekend, you had the Lone Star Audio Fest in Dallas. You have Newport Beach in 2 weeks. You have Capital Audio Fest a month after that. You have the DeGogo show in the Bay Area a week after that. It's one way, in one sense, this is great. It's great to meet you guys. It's great for manufacturers to be able to meet you guys and hear one-on-one what you think about their products. But that's a lot of shows. So I think maybe next year perhaps there'll be some thinning of the ranks. The more successful ones will survive. We shall see. And Richard Beers from The Show will be giving you some up-to-date information on what's happening in 2 weeks' time. So that's about all I have prepared. So thank you very much for coming, and thank you, Brooks.
Oh, don't get off. Q&A. Come on. For John Atkinson.